Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. I think we're going to start now. I just want to ask if everyone would kindly mute themselves if you're not already. Thank you. So my name is Linda Altenberger. I am a registered dietitian and the senior nutritionist with Cornell Cooperative Extension SNAP-Ed program. And I'm excited to have you join me today in a third of our series on immunity, building a healthy immune system. And today we are going to focus on we're going to focus on ginger. Just making sure I have the right presentation up. And I wanted to introduce my colleague to you, Marta Blanco, and she is going to be assisting me with the chat box. So please feel free, if at any time you have any questions or comments, you can type them into the chat box or raise your hand, and Marta will filter those questions my way. So without any further ado, I wanted to just review briefly the objectives of today's workshop, and we're going to highlight not only the uses and the benefits, but possible risks of using ginger. And we are also going to share with you a couple of recipes, some of my favorites on incorporating ginger into your day. But before we move on to the next slide, I just wanted to ask if you would mind sharing with me so I know, a show of hands or further comment, if you've already been cooking with ginger or if you know nothing about it whatsoever. And if you have been using it, what is your favorite recipe? If you could share that with me, or how you use it. And we'll just take a minute to do that. Thank you.
Okay, I have a couple of people saying that they have used ginger, and one is specifically that in a chicken stir fry. That sounds good.
Sounds delicious.
In tea and for cooking.
Anyone who has never used it at all yet and is interested in doing that? Perhaps not. Okay. So before we move on to the next slide, perhaps, and this might be a review for the few of you that maybe caught my last workshop, just remind us, what are some of the ways that we can strengthen or enhance or make sure that we have a healthy immune system? What do you guys do on a daily basis to keep a healthy immune system? If you could just enter one or two things in the chat box, that would be great. So I see where we're at.
Okay, we have somebody that shared that they don't normally use ginger, but they did put some in a glass of water. And regarding to your questions right now, they say drink, sleep, eat veggies, take vitamins, keep active, exercise, eat fruits and vegetables, raw veggies, more vegetables. So I guess that's the winner for today. Rest, water, and veggies. Those seem to be like the most popular answers.
Very good, very good.
And obviously less stress.
Yes, something we all need more of, less of these days, less stress. So that reminder, the importance with fruits and vegetables, it's going to give us that high dose of antioxidants, phytochemicals that we need to keep a healthy immune system, as well as the key vitamins and micronutrients. Keep in mind with our regular physical activity, so important, especially now that we're homebound and working remotely. Both strength training and aerobics are important to keep a healthy immune system. And if you have slacked off based on a change in your routine, even starting back in with 10, 15 minutes at a time, the exercise is cumulative. So the goal for adults is, I believe, 150 minutes a week of moderate intensity. So start slow, don't let that discourage you. And keep in mind those first two, between having the vegetables and the fruits and your physical activity, is what's going to help you accomplish the third bullet of maintaining a healthy weight. So whether you need to lose weight or you want to at least stay where you're at and not be a part of the COVID-15, those first two are essentially important. So further on, it's demonstrated that when we have belly fat and we put on that belly fat, that's releasing what's called cytokines into the body, and that's what impacts negatively our immune system. So again, don't get discouraged if you've put on a couple of pounds or we're just still trying to get rid of that belly fat from the winter. Start slow, and it's more likely to be, you'll be more successful that way. And when we mention sleep, that reminder that at least 7 or more hours of sleep is what's been shown in research to help you keep a healthy immune system. But almost more critical is that the sleep would be of a good quality sleep and not so easy to do. We'll probably have another presentation in a few short weeks that address things like sleep and stress, so look for those. Lastly, if you do smoke, try to seek support in helping you to quit. Sometimes we can't do these things by ourselves, so it's so important to seek professional support that way. So lastly, we also want to follow, we want to follow steps to decrease infection. So following CDC guidelines from washing our hands frequently, and you know, if you're produce, you want to rinse that under running water, not add soaps and disinfectants. The running water is what we really want to do to stay healthy. Oh, we got our there. So as we move forward to our next slide with ginger, okay. So ginger is a spice that's been used in homeopathic and traditional medicine for centuries now, and its healing powers have been embraced by many cultures. And it's the ancient Chinese and Indians that used a ginger tonic to treat common ailments. So the ginger root was discovered and cultivated in South Asia. It tends to survive and thrive in tropical and subtropical climates. And there are actually several different types of ginger plants, and they each have a different color flower, and that's how you can tell them apart. So it's actually the underground part that's called the rhizome, and that's often what you see in the pictures there. That's some of them there. And that is the part that is edible. So the roots are typically like a pale brown in color, and they have a slightly pungent odor and a little sharp taste, something to get used to at first. So the ginger possesses, one of the interesting things that I learned is it has what's called this ability to increase saliva production, which is really neat because there are some diseases, disorders like Sjogren's syndrome, which persons have less saliva and secretions like their eyes and such. So it's the response is known as Sialagogue, Sialagogue, and that helps increase the saliva production, which is really important for good health too. And interestingly enough, as you all may know, ginger is also used as a flavoring or a fragrance from foods and beverages, soaps and cosmetics. So it has many uses out there. So did you know, I'm going to ask you again to get interactive and use the chat box. So how long do you think it takes to grow edible ginger to maturity? I'm going to be curious to see what kinds of answers we get.
Okay, we have a couple brave participants saying 6 months, 5 months, 3 months, a year.
Okay, so those are interesting answers. So the
45 days.
Okay, cool. So the research actually shows that it takes between 8 to 10 months to grow to maturity. That's like a really long time. That's almost like the, you know, having a baby. So after the plant reaches its 2 to 4 foot height, the leaves then die off. Oh, I realized I didn't click the answer, but there you go. The leaves then die off, and then we dig up the roots, and that's the edible part. So it turns out that Hawaii is the only place in the United States where ginger is grown commercially, on a large scale anyway. And India basically is the largest producer of ginger in the world at 36%, with China following around 20. So thanks for participating in that. I do have another did you know? So get out your pencils again. Do you know which has the higher nutritional value? Ground ginger root or the raw ginger root? What would you think? You could put your answer in the chat box.
So we have raw from several people. One person says both. Same.
Okay, cool. So again, I wouldn't discourage that we not use one form or the other, but
Or ground.
interestingly enough, they are saying that the ground ginger root, because it's more concentrated at that point, has a little bit larger on the nutritional value. But I would still, like anything else, I kind of use both versions, you know, whether it's we're talking about garlic, sometimes raw, sometimes, you know, cooked, sometimes in dry powder form, whatever is accessible that way. So that's good. So when we talk about the nutritional value, when used as a spice, a tablespoon of dried ginger powder provides us with minerals such as potassium, copper, magnesium, and most importantly, a really heavy dose, about 70% of our daily value of manganese. So I thought that was interesting as well. So here's our last one. And it's really a mind twister, a mind teaser. So during the 13th century, I know probably most of us were not around at that time. How much would you say the cost of ginger, what would you say it was equivalent to? And here's some silly guesses. So was it a hen, a sheep, a head of cabbage, or a liter of ale? What would you think? Come on, brave souls. What kind of answers?
We have liter of ale, a sheep, a hen.
All right, we got the whole farm. So it was actually the cost of a sheep, which apparently is, if I'm remembering correctly, somewhere around 3/4 of their like an annual salary. It was like really super, super expensive. So I just thought that was neat as well. So with that said, common forms of ginger, we have the fresh or dried root, we have the liquid extract, the crystal, the tea, the capsule, and the essential oil. So fresh ginger root, which is available typically in you know, your grocery stores, although right now I'm finding it's not as available in the produce section as it had been. So it can be safely eaten raw or cooked, although a lot of people really prefer the cooked form, as raw ginger tends to have that little bit of spicy, you know, spicier kick. It will stay for about 3 weeks in your refrigerator. And just wanted to point out, as far as aromatherapy goes, usually it's the flower, the herbs, and the trees that the aromatherapy is spun off on, that complementary health approach. Most often, though, the essential oils are used for inhaling or applied diluted on the skin. However, there's little research, really strong research for supporting the aromatherapy, but it is still another modality that's out there. So fresh versus dried. I know this might be a question that a lot of us are asking. So first I want to mention convenience is what often guides us to use something. So if it's not convenient or accessible or cost-wise, that can be prohibited. So the dried herbs and spices are perfectly fine. Research does indicate that the dried versions do retain their antioxidant capacity, that phenolic content during the drying process. So it is okay to use the dried. Processed herbs can contribute significant amounts of antioxidant compounds to the diet. So again, no problem using the dried versus the fresh. You do want to, you know, when you open up your container of dried, you know, you want to have a fresh scent. If you don't have any scent at all, or you know it's been around a while, or if there is an expiration date, then I would, you know, get rid of that. Then the antioxidant qualities are likely no longer present. So many supposed health benefits, but I'm going to try and clear that up for you. In Asian medicine, dried ginger was used for many years to treat things like stomach pain, diarrhea, and nausea. So there is strong evidence that ginger can help with nausea and vomiting, in particular with pregnancy, motion sickness, or post-surgery, and also for chemotherapy in, you know, associated nausea for chemo patients. Now, ginger contains several compounds that are thought to help provide different health benefits. One of them is gingerol. It's the relative of capsaicin, and it's found in the chili peppers, which lends the root to its spiciness. So now it's the gingerols that are being studied for anti-cancer substances, and it may also help interfere with the development of tumors. But again, there's no really concrete long-term evidence to that. So we'll talk about that more in a minute. So ginger has been shown to reduce the nausea through the direct effect in the stomach. And it does also contain another couple of compounds that help aid in pain and inflammation. So keep in mind, it's that inflammation piece that is so important, because a lot of the diseases that are out there, you know, from diabetes and other autoimmune types of diseases, have that inflammation component. So if we can keep inflammation at bay, it's really going to be helpful for perhaps things that we might have come down with down the road as we get older. So ginger may work as an anti-inflammatory substance, and today as a nutritional supplement has been shown to be helpful with things like osteo and rheumatoid arthritis. And there have been some of these benefits still have to be proven a little further, but there has been valid research. So historically, ginger has been used to treat everything from the common cold to GI ailments. And they talked about some animal studies that are showing that it can reduce oxidative damage and then prevent cancer and cancer growth. So again, we have to just look for more of that research to support that claim. There's no research right now that it helps with IBS. No different than what was presented using a placebo. So basically, when they did the study and half were, you know, given the ginger and half were given what's called like a sugar pill, really would have no impact, you know, medically, they both showed the same results. So with that said, and there is some research underway too that it is helpful for hypertension. And there were several double-blind placebo-controlled studies, which are your ultimate type of study that we want to look for, that showed significant decrease in hemoglobin A1C and blood sugar for persons with type 2 diabetes. So that's really relevant. And again, I stress we still need to look on the horizon for more research surrounding that. So I just wanted to highlight with supplementation, I think I mentioned this the last time as well, you know, the FDA does not regulate supplements similarly to what it does for medications. In other words, for the, you know, before a medication can be released on the market, there has to be heavy testing. They have to show evidence of it being safe. Well, our supplements, it does not work that way. So anyone can kind of, you know, mass produce a bottle and slap a label on it. Doesn't necessarily mean that what's in the bottle is being depicted on the label. So those are always things we have to, you know, buyer beware. And so I just encourage you with that, know where you're purchasing something, that hopefully it's a reliable source, and, you know, that's just really important. As with any other dietary supplement or change in our lifestyle, we always want to check with our doctor before starting something, especially if you're going for surgery, especially if you're on medications in particular, so you can avoid any possible interaction or side effects. So when we talk about safety concerns, here are a few. Just want to not forget anything there. So about 1/8 of a teaspoon of ground ginger powder twice a day is what some of the research is showing. So that dosage would probably be safe to incorporate, but I would not do more than that. And so with each person, it's an individualized thing. You know, what one might tolerate, someone else might not. And that small amount could cause someone to have some heartburn or gas or nausea. And so you always want to be wary of that. Could give you some of those GI symptoms, even at that small amount. And the FDA does have it on what's called their GRAS list. It's generally recognized as safe. So when it's used as a spice, it's on that list showing that it is safe to use. However, there are some medication types of interactions, in particular if you're on Coumadin, which is a blood thinner known as warfarin. Also, there are 1 or 2 different cardiovascular types of drugs. So again, I caution you, If you are on any medications in particular, I would always double check with your healthcare practitioner on that. I don't know if there are any questions. I don't want to speed through anything. Marta, nothing?
No, so far.
Okay,
You're good.
so this was a neat infographic from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, and if you want, if you did put your email in the chat box, I can always send you the link for it because it may be difficult to read on the slide, but it was really nicely done, that reminder to check with your healthcare practitioner, you know, and also consider any possible risks for that. So it was just a neat little reference. I think on there they might cite the website, but it is the U.S. Food and Drug Administration's reminder on dietary supplements and, you know, minerals and herbs and such
Linda,
like that.
somebody's asking, is it water soluble?
Is ginger water soluble? I believe it is. Usually it's the vitamins A, D, E, and K that are fat soluble. As far as I know, the ginger would be water soluble. I could do more research and then get back to you just to double check. So again, also to the Arthritis Foundation website has a great article on how to identify and how to select a proper supplement. So that's also a reference that I have listed in the end. Also too, as a reminder, if you're pregnant or breastfeeding, you always want to consult with your doctor, OBGYN, before taking any herbal supplements. So that's always something to remember too. And this just sort of depicts the reason why we want to always have that line of communication open, because sometimes we might take a drug and we might be taking a drug and then a supplement, and together it might cause a decrease in your medication's effectiveness, which means it's not going to really do its trick. Like if it's supposed to help with hypertension and whatever you take as an herbal decreases the effectiveness, you're not going to have control, adequate control in, say, your hypertension, for instance. So, and other medications, when we look to the right, it's showing when you take a certain herbal, it could possibly increase its effect, which means, you know, it could cause more potential side effects unwanted by doing that combination of drug and supplement or such like that. So it's, again, it is a real concern, and I can't stress it enough. So that's why I kind of focused on it for a couple of slides here. So here we are with the fun part, ideas for everyday consumption. I know some of you guys did share one or two ideas, but great for adding to smoothies, cereals, hot especially, rice dishes, lentils, soups, and even sweet potato. So you can grind up the ginger or sprinkle it into your cereal, yogurt, or smoothie. You could even put it on toast and sort of have a gingerbread toast. And it definitely adds a nice Asian flair to any sauteed vegetables that you might do. I've also added it to salad dressings and marinating. I've also grated it on an actual salad and adds a nice little, you know, zing that way. And again, you could sprinkle it on sweet potato. And again, great for antioxidant packed side dish. So also too, this didn't fit on my slide. So you could also use it in sushi and stir fry. I think someone mentioned like a broccoli stir fry earlier when we were asking for feedback. So I thought those looked really good. So ginger tea, and again, I know someone earlier mentioned that they put the ginger in water, so that's great, almost like adding lemon to your water. However, by heating it up, it does help to release the compound a little more. So here's just a simple basic recipe that you would grate or thinly slice your piece of ginger. They say about an inch size, so it's almost like the size of your thumb. And you want to wash it first, so you take that 2-inch piece of ginger, and under running water, you're just going to, with your hands or a little scrub brush, you know, sometimes the skin is very thin and you really don't have to peel it. So you can either leave the skin on or decide to remove it. But you always want to make sure it's clean. And then you would steep that for about 10 or 15 minutes in your water. You could do it in a little saute pan or whatever works for you. And then you can strain it thereafter or leave the little pieces floating if you like to. Lemon always works well. So really neat beverage, especially at night, kind of soothing. It has a great aroma as well. Next, I
Linda, we
have,
have somebody sharing ginger ice cream. I've never tried that.
ooh,
Sounds good.
please share the recipe and we can spread that, spread that to the participants. That sounds delicious.
Yes.
So here I have a neat little recipe to share on carrot ginger soup. So I hope you enjoy. I always try to do less salt than the recipe calls for, or even possibly no salt, or a low sodium stock. And the immersion blender works so well. I do recommend. And I wouldn't even add the salt at that point. Looks delish. So I think I skipped a slide, so bear with me. Okay. I'm going to pop into this next recipe because we're going to run a little short on time. And I hope you guys could stay another 2 or 3 minutes. This one was a garlic ginger vegetable.
We're going to go straight in on this one, so we're going to need a wok. We're going to toss oil in there.
And if you don't have a wok, it doesn't have to be a wok. You could do it in whatever saucepan on the large side. Oh, no, so there is supposed to be sound, and I'm not sure why you're not getting that. So I apologize. So I will resend the link to everyone if you can't access it from greatfood.com, but there is supposed to be voice on that. So he's adding the carrot.
We have some people joining by phone, Linda, so I guess it would be useful to share the link.
Right.
So Linda's email, for those of you who do not have access to the chat box, is la276@cornell.edu. and she will gladly share the link of the video and the recipe.
Mhm. So,
So the email is la276@cornell.edu, and I'm going to write it again in the chat box.
and again, depending on what you have in your pantry or refrigerator, you know, you can change up the vegetables. He did use quite a few vegetables, which is always great. But if you only have mushrooms and carrots, or peppers and celery, you know, or frozen peas, they all work well. Sure, it works really well with brown rice, but again, you always want to maybe prepare it either the morning before or the day before, because using it day old helps it to come out better in the recipe rather than making it. So in the interest of time, because I don't want to lose anybody, especially if you can't hear what's going on, I'm probably going to stop this video short. I think it has another 2 minutes to go. And he does wind up adding some soy sauce. I would use a low sodium soy sauce, a very small amount. And I think that's pretty much it on the recipe. I just want to be able to finish up my slides and allow time for questions. So thank you. And I apologize for that on the sound. So keep in mind, as we wrap up today's workshop, you always want to have that communication with your healthcare provider, especially when it's something more along the supplement end of integrative health practices. And that way you could manage prescriptions and possible interactions. Just want to do this first. Sorry, my presenter view. And these were pretty much the resources that I accessed. I could always send those to you as well. We have the CCE Suffolk website, as well as New York State SNAP Ed, and the Arthritis Foundation, Consumer Labs, Center for Science in the Public Interest, National Center for Complementary and Integrative Medicine. And I wanted to say thank you, of course. Any questions? And as I wrap up, remember in closing that the health benefits of antioxidants, you know, those really need to always be in our forefront to stay healthy. So the use of antioxidant-rich herbs and spices are another simple strategy to keep our healthy immune system and have that a daily intake in our diet. So I want to thank you for joining me today on this relevant topic. And feel free also, if you have any desires for a specific topic to be covered in the future, if you put that in the chat box, we'll try to accommodate your special request. And I hope you found today's information informative and useful. And I open up for questions. Marta, I can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. They're saying
Yes.
thank you, and it was very informative. And we have a suggestion for a detox topic.
Very good. We'll keep that in mind and then look forward to presenting.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, everyone. Stay well, eat healthy.